Okay, we are back, and this week's presentation is about hypnosis and mind control. It's something I've been noticing lately as the United States presidential elections come up, and how the general public, there's so many people in the general public appear to be spellbound by various leaders and ideologies. And it's so interesting when if you were to be so foolish as to attempt to persuade somebody towards your political views, how logic and reason don't seem to work, because there's something that you're up against, and that is the mass hypnosis of the general public. So here are a couple of definitions of hypnosis. These are psychological definitions. An altered state of consciousness in which individuals are more receptive to suggestions and commands than in their normal waking state. The normal waking state. Okay, so it's some kind of special state of consciousness that you can enter, and then suddenly you are susceptible to commands and suggestions. Another definition: a focused state of attention that is narrowed and directed inward. I remember attending a workshop in which the leader of the workshop took 3 students, and this was in high school, I believe it was, took 3 students and hypnotized them. And before she did that, she described hypnosis and said, well, when you're hypnotized, it's not really that much different than when you are in a normal state of consciousness, okay? And you might even be more aware. And she would say, if the fire alarm were to go off while I have these 3 people hypnotized, they might be faster to respond to the emergency than everybody else in the room, because they're in they're more tuned into their environment or into their bodies, or they're more alert. They're actually more alert than less alert. It's not like they have gone to sleep. Okay. And since then, I've realized that what she said is not necessarily true. Hypnosis is not necessarily a greater state of awareness. Judging by the second definition there, a focused state of attention that is narrowed and directed inward. So that could be a type of awareness that is not so aware of the environment, apparently. And another definition: a state of altered consciousness, different from both waking and sleeping states. Yeah, and I think that some people would like to get into hypnosis sort of like they get into drugs, so as an escape from conventional reality. And certainly it could be used to do that, yes. But what is hypnosis? These are medical definitions of hypnosis. And that top definition really doesn't get into it at all, does it? It just basically describes it from the outside. And then the second definition there, not very helpful either. A trance-like state? Well, what is a trance-like state? Not so hard to figure out, really. If you are spellbound, or if you're watching a movie, like we used to watch movies. Do we watch movies anymore? If you watch a movie and you are riveted to your seat, that's apparently a state of hypnosis where you are just so incredibly captivated by the movie, okay? Or you're listening to somebody tell a story, or you're reading a story, kind of the same thing. You can be captivated and completely sucked in to that experience. That could be described as a state of hypnosis. So this is not something really all that exotic. It's just something that we all experience on a regular basis, more so than you think, as we're about to get to. So none of the definitions are particularly helpful. Why is it so hard to define what hypnosis is? It's a very real phenomenon. and you can do some amazing things with it. Apparently, you can even do regressive hypnosis, and apparently regress someone back to before they were born, even to a time before they were conceived, and then suddenly they are tuning into memories of a past life. Where's that coming from? So there's really cool stuff you can do with hypnosis. As we well know, not only can you quit smoking, but you can also remember past lives. Or you can remember details from your childhood or from the past that, as though your mind has been making a movie of your entire life, and all the details are still there. Like the memory is somehow perfectly within. Why is it so hard to define it? I'll tell you why in a bit. Is it mind control? And so if you go to a therapist, like a hypnotherapist, they will be very quick to tell you, oh, don't worry, anything we do here, I cannot force you to do anything that you wouldn't normally want to do. That isn't how hypnosis works. That's what they will tell you. Okay? And in part that's true, but it's not the whole truth. Okay, so hypnosis that has gone on for a long time will have you doing things that you don't really want to do, that you wouldn't really have done before you entered that state of consciousness. Okay, and this is kind of demonstrated by the stage hypnosis, like the hypnotist who comes to town and then takes several people from the audience and then hypnotizes them and supposedly makes them do embarrassing things in front of everyone. Okay. And if you were to ask those people afterwards, it's like, how did you do that? Like, what was it like? And they might say, well, it wasn't really anything different. I was simply participating with what was going on, like what he was telling me to do. But then they'll say, yeah, but you were clucking like a chicken, or you were speaking like a little infant, or something like a little child. Didn't you find that embarrassing? And they're like, no, not at the time. I was just kind of playing along with it. But come to think of it, now I'm kind of embarrassed. Like now that you pointed out, So what's going on with that mind control thing? Can you learn how to do that? Can you learn how to control other people's behaviors and their minds? Just to demonstrate that the science of mind control is a very real thing. Okay, especially if you were to study how cults form, like or things like Stockholm syndrome and things like that. These are basically the effects of hypnosis. Somebody joins a cult, and suddenly their outlook shifts radically, and they become seemingly another person in a short span of time. This apparently happens through group hypnosis, okay, or just hypnosis from somebody who has the ability to do that. Okay, not necessarily somebody who has been trained in how to do that, but somebody who might have a talent for doing it. Okay, sometimes it's a little bit of both. Okay, so these are terms that come from the study of, let's say, group hypnosis or mass formation psychosis, things like that, right? Groupthink is something that for mass hypnosis that kicks in, and people start participating in groupthink, and that's not the way they would behave by themselves, but when they're in the group, they are now of the group mind, and they start doing things that the group does, which is can be often contrary to what they would do on their own. Selective inattention. Okay, so if you're immersed in a particular environment long enough, you can become blind to the absurdities of what goes on in that environment. It simply happens so often that you just don't see it anymore. A good example of that would be the Donald Trump phenomenon, where one scandal after another, one lie after another, and you just become blind to it. You don't see it anymore, because you have to wonder how his followers and devotees can still be loyal to him when the narcissism and the endless lying and the huckster mentality keeps going on and on. How do they reconcile that with their religious beliefs and all these things? Selective inattention. Okay, and there's a lot that goes on in that cult of Trump that you can see. If you study hypnosis, you can see there's a lot of hypnosis going on there. On a cultural level, okay, not only from the celebrity Trump himself, but also through the various news outlets who are repeating the same sort of formula. We'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, one of the main things that happens through social media and through the news is a repetition of one particular type of hypnosis, and we'll talk about that in a bit. Pluralistic ignorance. I thought that was an interesting term. It's the same thing as selective inattention. I think everybody sort of learns to not see certain things about what's happening in their group, and they only see what reinforces their worldview. Okay, and there are other terms. I don't have time to go over all of these. Priming is very interesting. Embedding commands, double binds, presuppositions, nominalizations. Nominalizations is what we do in magic to hypnotize ourselves. Incantations. Yeah, some really cool stuff there, especially with Enochian magic. Reframing. Reframing is a very important practice. Now, these things aren't necessarily good or bad. These are things that we can do to help ourselves and to heal ourselves. Okay, but they can also be used to exert unethical control over other people's minds. Anchoring is a really good thing, a really good strategy. And the use of repetitious affirmations or negations, kind of the same thing. Anchoring is like where we achieve a certain emotional effect on the audience, and then we say a particular word, like hallelujah. And then when we achieve that effect again, we say it again, hallelujah. Or like in occult circles, in ceremonial magic circles, we might say, so mote it be. And then everybody repeats, so mote it be. And then you do something else, and that sounded really cool, so mote it be. And everybody repeats, so mote it be, okay? And that's a sort of a cult thing that can grow out of that. That is a mass hypnosis, which can turn into a group think and sort of subvert critical thinking. Okay, it doesn't have to. Yeah, it's a magical effect that has its own sort of momentum, and it kind of blasts through any critical thinking that we have, okay? And that can be a good thing in some instances, okay? Critical thinking isn't everything. That might be a subject for a future video. And so the use of repetitious affirmations and negations, that's like if you go to a church that's very sort of gospel and hallelujah and that sort of stuff and amen. And everybody, and preachers talking and everybody's like, not yes, yes, yes. Or there might be something, and we're not going to do this, are we? No. And we're not going to let them get away with this, are we? No, we're not. So the repetition is very interesting, because the more you get into the repetitious yes or the repetitious no, then eventually the person leading the group can insert something in there that you will then agree to without even thinking about it. Yes, and this is how the mind control begins to set in, or the brainwashing. And my favorite is the use of suspense, okay, which you'll see in the cult of Trump a lot. He's not that good at it, but he's, a reporter will say, what's your decision on this? And he'll say, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see in a couple of days. We'll see. So he keeps everybody waiting for more. Okay, that's a good dramatic technique. I use it in these videos. For instance, when I say, what really is hypnosis? Well, we'll get to that in a bit. So I can just keep it kind of hanging there, right? These are the kinds of things that can also keep you turning the page when you're reading. These are dramatic devices. If you read Stephen King, it's like you wonder, how does he get you to keep turning the pages? Like you can't seem to stop reading. Okay, there's some writers who are really good at that. Okay, and he is particularly good at it. Not dynamite at it, but he's pretty good at it. I've got a couple of other authors who are really good at it. Like it's dangerous to pick up one of their books because you can't stop reading. It's hypnotic. Social media and validation addiction. This is how social media hypnotizes people, okay? And this is primarily the way that the mass hypnosis happens in politics. It's where people get together and they are repeatedly outraged by something, and then they find a position to maintain against that something, and then everybody pats themselves collectively on the back to congratulate themselves for being so righteous and so good, and for repeatedly condemning the people who are offending them or engaging in this egregious behavior. And that act of feeling good about trouncing the opposition is self-validation. It's a feedback loop. And so what happens is you go onto social media, someone offends you, or something offends you, and you speak your outrage against it, and other people pat you on the back, and you pat yourself on the back, you feel really good about it. It's like, ooh, that was nice. Then suddenly you go looking for something else that might offend you, so that you can get that good feeling again, that outrage, and then congratulate yourself for being so above that thing that you just saw. Yeah, it's similar to Schadenfreude, where you basically are watching people who are less fortunate than you, and then feeling really good about yourself because you are above them. I remember when reality TV first came on, I thought it was a disaster. I saw what was happening to my friends as they watched the show Cops. I think it was called Cops in the 90s. And this show would put on display people who are really having a tough time in their neighborhoods, with their poverty, with their addictions, whatever, and being marginalized, and they're having trouble regulating their own behaviors. And the cops would go in and catch them in really embarrassing and awful situations. And the audience is pretty much invited to feel superior to all these people who the cops are now lecturing and having to deal with. I always got a very dirty feeling whenever that show came on, because I'm being invited to feel better than the people the cops are going after. Okay, so that's similar to what happens with social media. It's called validation addiction. Okay, you could also call it righteousness addiction. Yeah, so see if you can catch yourself in the act of seeking out that feeling of righteousness, and then feeling good about yourself because you know better, right? And they are just so horrible, and you are so much more superior. Yeah, we see a lot with vegans versus meat eaters. The meat eaters just don't know. They're so barbaric, and they're so ignorant about how and so cruel, and yeah. Is meditation a form of hypnosis? Possibly. We'll get to that in a bit. Oops, I'm using suspense on you. I'm controlling your mind. Is it an altered state? Is hypnosis an altered state of consciousness? Is that what we're after when we hypnotize ourselves, or when we go to a hypnotist? Are we trying to achieve an altered state of consciousness and see God or whatever like that, right? Well, is it an expanded form of consciousness, as that woman once tried to convince us when she hypnotized the 3 students? She was trying to tell us that hypnosis is sort of like making you more conscious or more aware than you normally would be. Okay, or is it a constraining type of consciousness where you just focus at there, dangle the watch in front of you, just keep your eye on the watch, only focus here, or only focus on my voice. Okay, it seems to me that it's rather the latter. So in other words, it's the constraining of consciousness, it's the limiting of consciousness. And if you will note, some forms of meditation are like that, where you focus in on one object and one object only. Okay. It's one form of meditation, though. That's not the only form of meditation. So yeah, it looks like when you focus in on the one object that you are hypnotizing yourself. So meditation is hypnosis. Okay, so let's start talking about what hypnosis actually is. One of the mistakes that we can make is hubris. Okay, so let's go back to this story of Moses with a staff. Moses carried a staff, right? It was supposedly it was his magic wand. Okay, and then he's in the wilderness with the Israelites, and they need water, and so he apparently is looking for water, and then he uses his magical gifts or his connection to God to find water. God tells him where the water is, okay, or he's dowsing. He's like looking for water with a stick, right? And when he reveals the source of the water, where the spring is, he strikes a rock with his staff in a dramatic fashion, as though he's pretending to cause the water to bubble up from the ground. Lo and behold, I strike the earth with my magical wand, and water gushes forth, and I have conjured it. Okay, and in that story, God punishes him for doing that. Okay, so in that story, Moses is supposedly presenting himself as the magician who has the magical power to cause the water to appear. Okay, so that it's almost like a ray of causality beams out of him into the earth and causes the earth to boom, produce water, right? And so that's kind of the way that we tend to see the hypnotist, that they're exerting some kind of magnetic influence on you. And that's what we call horizontal causality. Okay, so I'm beaming like information into you, and you are now under my spell, under my influence, and I'm maintaining a beam of control, like a tractor beam on you, right? Now I control your mind. Okay, so that view of hypnosis is pretty cool. Okay. But like any form of magic, it is mistaken. And so if you take it upon yourself to adopt the position of the God, let's say, and say, I am the one controlling your mind, okay? That's, the ancient Greeks would say that's called hubris. You are now portraying yourself as the source of the magical power, or you are portraying yourself as the source of the hypnotic power, as though it's beaming out of your eyes, and you are taking credit for something that is not yours. Okay? And so when you hypnotize somebody, or when somebody hypnotizes you, this is not what is happening. This beam of light is not, shining out of them into you, making you do things. No. Okay, and just like I said in other videos, when you supposedly make something happen with magic, all you can really be accused of is orchestrating the conditions so that this effect can arise. Sort of like a gardener. Okay, he creates the right conditions, and maybe, God's willing, the garden will grow. But the ability to make the garden grow is not really within the magician's power or within the gardener's power, okay? That power still resides with the gods or with the forces of nature, right? Or if you're ancient Egyptian, it resides with Osiris. You know, Osiris is the power of the uprising vegetation, right? And so if you are attempting to produce a state of hypnosis in another person, it's not you who does that, but you are orchestrating the environment and the conditions under which that state of hypnosis can rise. Okay, so to view it as a horizontal like this is a mistake. Okay, and if you are able to hypnotize people, they won't necessarily know that. They might even experience it as though you have hypnotic eyes, and you are, something magical about you. You're beaming your energy at them. They're not sure how you did it. So this is what hypnosis is not. Okay, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean you don't have hypnotic eyes, okay? There are things that you can do with your eyes and with your speech and with your dramatic pauses, okay, and with your repetition that can help induce that hypnotic state, okay? But the hypnotic state arises out there in the other person, not directly from you. Okay, I think that's clear enough. So, what is hypnosis then? Okay, it's hard to find it's hard to define hypnosis because most of us are in a state of mind that makes it hard to define. Okay, because we are trying to define hypnosis while we are in a hypnotized state. Because the average person is almost constantly in a state of hypnosis. So being hypnotized is not so exotic a thing after all. It's not really an exotic thing. Okay? Almost everyone you meet is in a hypnotized state of mind. Okay? I guarantee on most days, everyone you meet is in a hypnotized state of mind, okay? Okay, what that means is that the goal of magic is not to induce a special state of mind, like Dion Fortune describes magic as the transformation of consciousness to achieve a particular result or something like that, or exerting the will to achieving a state of a change of consciousness in conformity with will, something like that, right? Well, the true goal of magic is not to enter an altered state of mind, necessarily. It is to liberate yourself from all of these altered states of mind. Okay? So now, that should not come as any surprise, because when the Buddha was enlightened, he came across a bunch of travelers and they were like, "What is it about you? Are you a god?" And he said, "No, I'm awake." And so what he was saying is that I'm no longer hypnotized. And almost everyone I meet around me is in a constant state of hypnosis. Okay, and if you look at this little picture here, it should make it pretty clear. Okay, so most of us, as we proceed through the world, are existing in a subject-object relationship, and we're fixated on the object. Okay, or our minds are caught up in this dichotomy of me versus the world. Okay, me versus the monster that's after me. Okay, or the deadline that's breathing down my neck, right? Or me versus the thing that I want. And that little thing is now stringing me along. That is a state of hypnosis. And if you think about it, it's almost like that when you dangle the classic view of hypnotizing somebody with a watch dangling in front of them, it's like the dangling carrot right in front of you. You're just kind of going after it, like, I must have the carrot, I must have the carrot, I must get to the carrot. And it keeps receding as you keep trying to go towards it. There's your state of hypnosis. Okay, and so it's not really rocket science. You can see the people around you are constantly hounded by this subject-object relationship. They're driven by it. They're chasing after something, or they're running away from something constantly. And it doesn't really ever stop. Even when they go to sleep, they chase after things in their dreams, and they are chased by things in their dreams, right? And it probably does stop a little bit, possibly in the deepest level of sleep, if you're able to reach that, if you're healthy enough to reach that. Okay, so now what is it like then to be free of this hypnosis? Okay, so yeah, the goal of spiritual practice then is to not be hypnotized anymore. Okay, not to achieve a special hypnotized state that's going to get you what you want. Okay. Now the interesting thing though with magic is that you can still get what you want. All right, but you want to look at these two entities here. There's the little beast and the dangling carrot, right? So to do ceremonial magic properly, okay, the way I'm presenting it right now, okay, is that you're primarily working on the way that you arise. In other words, the carrot and this little donkey here, they arise together. Okay, the subject and the object sort of emerge together. It's kind of like if you go out and hypnotize somebody, that state of hypnosis arises along with your hypnotizing effort. As your hypnotizing effort spins around over here, works its magic, right? Over there, as they are sort of observing you, then over there, that hypnotized state arises within them. They arise together. Okay, so primarily with ceremonial magic, it really is more about invoking the various virtues of the planets and of self-perfection or whatever, so that if this donkey here works on his own character and his own character traits and purifies them and settles them down and takes care of any like little lurking demons, then whatever manifests around him is much more agreeable to what he actually needs or what he actually wants. Okay, it's no guarantee of that, but life settles down as well. So in other words, when he works on himself to become more virtuous or whatever that is, he starts to develop these various sephirothic virtues or these planetary virtues. Then the world around him outside will also begin to settle down and begin to provide things that he actually needs and wants, sort of in harmony with him. And it will seem as though he's doing magic to get this precise thing or that precise thing. Okay, and he might even wink at it and play along and say, yeah, sure, I did that, right? When in fact he's just been working on his own planetary virtues or whatever, the tree of life inside of himself, so to speak, is being perfected, and it's becoming a lean, mean manifestation machine. Okay, so and now the carrot, all the dangling carrots that appear outside of his magic circle are much more conducive and harmonious to what's going on inside the magic circle, and the two things arise together. So everything's still arising separately like that, as subject objects, but there's no need to exert any kind of horizontal causality, beam a magic energy beam out of my head and make the carrot appear over there. Okay, so one of the worst mistakes we can make is that sort of hubris, to assume that, oh, I'm the one who made that thing manifest out there. Okay, as you will remember, the ancient Greeks we're very quick to say that if you assume that you're the one who's working the magic, that's you pretending to be a god, and the gods will punish you for that. Okay, or what that really means is that life will become, a sort of hell for a while for you if you keep trying to take credit for the things that happen in your life in that way. Okay, but once again, you can adopt the role of the gardener, or the person who cultivates the one's own internal virtues, so that whatever manifests on the inside is in harmony with what manifests on the outside. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense or not. And to do that, to cultivate, your own internal planets or your internal tree of life. As you do that, you become less and less hypnotized. You become free of all of the dangling carrots out there. And then you begin to watch around you as everybody keeps chasing after something around you, or always running away from something, and they live their lives as if life is one emergency after another. Endlessly, endlessly, endlessly keeps going. Suffering, suffering, suffering. Calamity, calamity, calamity. Life is just one damn thing after another, right? And that's you can step out of that rat race, okay? And so in other words, to be free of hypnosis, hypnosis is a constrained kind of mind in which you have been sucked into some kind of drama of the chase, okay? In which something's after you, or you are after something. You have been sucked into this drama, and you have bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. You believe it's real. Now you're hypnotized. Okay, so if you look at the various things going on around you, we are basically in a society that's pretty much under mass hypnosis. Civilization really has gotten us, it's sunk its claws into us, and has us strung out. Consumerism and fear of extinction, and all these things that we do compulsively because we think we need things, or we think that something's out to get us. What is the world really like beyond all that drama? Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is that if this is kind of a downer for you, it's like, well, I wanted to enter special states of mind and things like that. The interesting thing is that when you are free of all of these little narratives, all of these little hypnotic states, then you have the power to basically participate in them as though they are real. Not only that, but you can induce them and create them in other people with great efficacy. You naturally develop the ability to hypnotize people. And hopefully you will use your powers for good instead of evil. Okay, so just having that perspective where suddenly you are free of all of the narratives, or almost all the narratives that are going on around you, okay, it gives you the ability to see all these little dramas from the outside. And then you can choose which drama you want to create or which drama you want to participate in. The choice is yours. And you really don't get caught in them anymore, because they're really not real. All right, so hopefully that clarifies something about hypnosis, okay? I'm not defining hypnosis the way that a doctor would define it, or the way that a psychologist would define it. That's too limiting, okay? Because the people who are making these definitions are also hypnotized, okay? They're seeing, hypnosis in terms of trying to make people better. In other words, chasing this dangling carrot of good health or something like that, okay? When it comes the perspective on the perspective that we develop over hypnosis from an enlightened state of mind, let's say, okay, or from a perspective that is relatively free of all these little dramas, the perspective is to look back upon humanity and say, wow, everybody's caught up in some kind of hypnotic drama. Amazing. Amazing. It's kind of the state of mind that we've evolved into. Yeah, and there are very few people who have awakened from that. Very few. And of course, now the job is clear. Wake up. So we practice these various magical techniques. It's kind of interesting too, because these magical techniques are like, aren't we just inducing other states of hypnosis? These are all like mind games anyway. Like, I'm drawing a circle, magic circle around myself. Isn't that a sort of hypnotic thing, right? Creating a reality that isn't really there. So when you do magic, you are deliberately restructuring the hypnotic state that you're in. You're starting to play with it in ways that are showing it to not be what you think it is. Okay, and in some way, there really isn't any escape from it too. Because if you are incarnated as a human being on Earth, that's already a state of hypnosis. Okay, so you're kind of, because you have sort of fallen into this realm of the flesh or something like that, you've already bought into some kind of drama, and now you're in it. Okay, and now you're sort of working yourself free. Okay, but the cool thing is, it's possible to be free of that drama, even while you're still in it, and then it's bliss. It's enlightenment. It is an enlightenment that has a tremendous amount of joy and freedom. A type of freedom that you cannot experience if you don't have a body. Okay, so the ecstasy of enlightenment is really only possible in a body, I would say. Whether it's a physical body or an astral body, there needs to be some kind of drama going on so that you can experience that freedom from the drama, in the midst of the drama, if that makes sense. All right. I think I just saw a video about blood magic and the use of blood in magic. And it had me thinking about what we used to think that hypnotism was. We thought it was sort of an animal magnetism that we exert upon each other or something like that, right? And I think there's some truth to that. So I think next week I would like to talk about the astral substance and the use of blood in magic, and also some other things like the blood of the gods, like ichor, and the metaphor of nectar that occurs in some of the Eastern traditions, okay, or the elixir of immortality. I think I want to talk about some of these things. Yeah, and it could be a little bit disturbing too, because then we'll talk about the use of blood and various other bodily fluids in magic. All right, so until next time.